Hello everyone, so welcome to the last set of videos, which I'm super pumped about. Um, and so these should be like super quick, just a couple of extra topics about this one-way ANOVA. And so normally we would have spent kind of this whole week on ANOVA, but because I kind of want you to have Thursday to be able to work on your final project, and because we have a longer quiz today, we're just going to cover it much more briefly. Next semester, there is stat 26, I think is the number. And that would have a lot more information about these ANOVA models anyway. So the example that we're going to talk about, I think turns out to be really cool. And it's this study that was designed to determine if dogs help relieve stress. And so what the study did was it recruited 45 women, and these women were all like self-proclaimed dog lovers. And so that's really our population. They didn't really include anyone that like is afraid of a dog or anything like that. And so they randomly assigned these 45 women to three different groups. There was a control group in which they were performing this like stressful task puzzle thing just with no one else present. There was a friend group in which they had to perform the task in front of a good friend. And then there was a pet group where they performed the task in the presence of a friendly dog. And so kind of you could look at the data just in these side-by-side box plots. What I think is especially cool is that not only, so heart rate is the response, should have mentioned that. Heart rate's the response, with lower heart rate presumed to mean less stress, which happens with most people. And so it's cool that you see like the pet group looks like it has a lower heart rate, though we'll test to see if that's statistically significant. But the extra cool part, I think, is that the heart rate is actually higher in the presence of a friend than just doing the task alone, which I think is interesting in terms of human nature. You can't imagine like having to do like an exam, and I think most of us would tend to do better on the exam alone than if we had like a good friend hovering over our shoulder watching us do all the work, which is most people find stressful. So we're gonna kind of skip straight to this ANOVA model. And so the main point that we're going to end up making is that you could just do a linear model. And it's the same exact model, but we're going to talk about why this formulation might be a little bit better. And so this is Y is still our response. This mu is our overall mean. So it's the overall mean heart rate. This little alpha thing is the effect of group I on the heart rate. In this case, since we have three groups, I could either be 1, 2, or 3. And so there's going to be three different effects: the effect of the control group, the effect of the friend group, and then the effect of the pet group. There's one more kind of condition about this model, and that's just that I'll write it like this: the effects have to sum to 0. Okay, so this is kind of our ANOVA model. We'll get into why it's advantageous to write it like this in a second. But for now, just kind of cross this out. And note that if we wanted to fit this model before, we already have the tools. And so if we have three groups, that means we're going to define two indicator variables. So I'm going to define an indicator variable for the friend and an indicator variable for the pet. And then our model that we talked about kind of before, though I don't think we have ever done one with just a categorical variable, would look like this. And so these two models that we wrote out are equivalent. And so we'll see that in the RStudio part where we actually fit them. We'll make some comparisons and just verify that these two models are actually the same model. They're just parameterized differently. And so that kind of begs the question, why bother fitting this model up here in the first place? And the big reason is that if you eventually want to compare like the control group to the friend group, the control group to the pet group, and the friend group to the pet group in kind of three separate comparisons, in order to do that with our linear model that we've been working with, we would have to refit with a different reference group in order to get this friend to pet comparison. On the other hand, there's already built-in procedures in most statistical software to get those three kind of comparisons, control to friend, control to pet, and friend to pet, if we fit the model like this. So there's already like software specifications that make it a lot easier to compare means with this setup than it is with this setup where we have to refit the reference group each and every time. Okay, so there should just be one more short video on this, and then a little kind of short R section that you'll turn in at the end as well. So as always, let me know if you have any questions. Get pumped for our last video.